Welcome to the Friends Fans Benefits Baseball Podcast. I'm Justin Mason, joined as always by a split screen Dave McDonald. Dave, how you doing, my friend?
I have no idea what's going on with this, and it's really getting annoying. I don't change anything, and I come back here, and first I was just a black screen, and now I'm a split screen. So I know you prefer the black screen, so it's unfortunate to fix to this. So
I was wondering if you had forgotten to pay your power bill, and now you're all
now I'm blurry.
I mean it happens every week, but how you doing?
Other than technical difficulties, doing pretty good. Just we're about to get into it, but just trying to buckle down on my leagues, man. This is you got to put your foot on the gas right now. This is where it's going to make or break you, and there's a lot of movement in those standings to be had still. So you got to just keep pushing and keep going for those league wins.
Yeah, you and I were kind of talking off air, and I was telling you how, like, in tout, just in the wins category alone, I can gain 8 points. I'm right now 9 points out of first place, and and then in my main event, I'm in 13th. But I was looking at the standings last night, and I went, I can still catch. I'm probably not going to catch Scott Genstead, who not only has been kicking our butts, but also somehow got Dustin May in Fab last night too. So he's probably gonna cruise to a win in both the mains I'm in with him.
Wow,
but he's just a damn good player. I love Scott, really good guy too. So
I'll never say it to his face, but he is both a great player and a great guy too.
He doesn't listen. So I he'll only listen if someone's like, hey, they were talking about you. Really good dude. And a really great player. I will definitely try to not be in his leagues next year because this has just sucked. I mean, even being in 13th place, like I can still make room or make moves and get up into the money. And so all my leagues still grinding, hoping to cash enough to at least cover costs. If not, thank God for DFS this year, because that's been an absolute blessing for me. But how are your leagues going?
It can be anything between a huge great season for me and a horrific one, because I'm basically between first and fourth or fifth in pretty much every league, other than the ultimate, where I'm in like eighth or something, but even that can still move up to third with a good couple weeks. So it's super stressful because none of my leagues are gonna be like a blowout. Like I'm not like easily gonna win any of them, but at the same time I can still win, or at the very least cash in pretty much all of them. I'd say the tag team is pretty much over. Cross and Govier are definitely going to take that down, but second place is very much up for grabs still. So can still win the main event, can still win Glarf. We have 6 teams within 4 points of each other vying for first. I've got some DCs where I'm either in first or second, like very easily can go either way. Some fan tracks leagues, I'm in first, but it's close. And then Yahoo is kind of all over the place. So yeah, it's just it's a lot of work, and now's the time to buckle down. Now's not the time to be making mistakes, and you need to be proactive and just do everything you can to win now.
Absolutely. And we're gonna get proactive, but first we got a ton of injury stuff to talk about.
Boy, do we.
Nathan Eovaldi, the IL. This is not surprising at all. Shoulder issue. His velocity has been down for a while.
They admitted to bring him back before he was ready because they needed him.
Yeah, and it just
would have been nice to know that back then, but hey.
Yeah, I mean, just a mistake with that guy's injury history. So, I mean, easy drop, right?
Yeah, I should have dropped him on Sunday, and I was really close, but they hadn't. Of course, these IL decisions always come out on Monday. They like to fuck you like that. It's like today between the Eovaldi IL news and Vinny P hurting himself on Monday after like one at bat. I'm like, come on, man! Like, what a great start to the week already. Yeah, you have to drop him at this point. Who knows? You know, they're going to want him healthy for the playoffs, so that's going to be their priority. It's not going to be getting him back for the regular season. He might come back at some point in September, but you can't hold a guy like that. Like, even if he's back, you don't know what you're getting. You have no idea if he's going to be, you know, he's probably not going to be vintage Eovaldi. So you need to focus on production now. So you need to just get rid of guys like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I just, you know, Aaron Ashby, also the IL with shoulder. I mean,
Yep.
I think another easy drop. Even if he
Yep.
comes back, he's probably a reliever rest of the way. You know, he just signed the big contract. They're notorious for making guys like this relievers,
Yep.
you know, for the stretch runs. So they've got plenty of depth in that rotation.
I mean, really, just any starters going down right now, like, unless it's like a quick 1 week injury, like, you have to drop them because the time to ramp back up alone and then getting them back, like, then they're going to first start back. You're going to avoid. There's just too much. There's not enough time left.
Yeah, absolutely. Next guy on the list, Vinny P hits the IL. This is super, super disappointing. You've been, you know, a really popular fab pickup. You know, it held his own. It wasn't great. Wasn't awful. Are you dropping him now?
Hopefully not. I mean, this is a little different than a pitcher, because with hitters, it's not the whole process of getting them ramped back up and everything. But I'm hoping he doesn't actually go to the IL from it. But you know, we have all the way until Sunday. I'm hoping he'll just be out a couple days and then he'll be back, but we'll see.
Okay, I thought he had already hit the IL. So
no, not yet. They just said it. You know, they haven't given any updates beyond that he had a shoulder injury.
Okay. Scott Efros, this is a bummer for me. I just picked him up in Fab this week, hoping to get some saves. He's got some sort of shoulder issue. He's hitting the IL. Do you think they're going back to Holmes? Do you think Chapman is gonna inherit the role?
No, I've given up on Chapman. I mean, if they didn't give it to him while they were, I mean, they had Efros who was unavailable with the shoulder injury the other day, and you know, Holmes was out. And they decided to go to Trevino. I mean, if you're going to go to Trevino to close, then you're clearly not even exploring the idea of Chapman yet. So I think it's going to be, I mean, I think if Holmes gets himself remotely right, I think it's going to be him, or maybe they'll just use a committee. I don't know, but I picked up Holmes in a couple of leagues over the weekend. So
yeah, I mean, I think Holmes would be the right choice. I don't know if this feels like a committee. This feels like they're going to just committee it out for right now. I think they'd like Chapman to be the guy, but I mean, he was looking great, and then all of a sudden, right back to, you know, struggling. So he needs that velocity back. I don't know that it's coming back. So Blake Trinan on a rehab assignment. He could return September 2nd. Do we care?
I don't know. So I read an article and I tweeted it out last night, basically suggesting that the Dodgers are going to start giving Kimbrel more regular outings. And so he might not be, he's not being used as just the closer anymore. He'll be used in other outings as well. But I think reading into it, it also sounds like he's not the sole closer anymore. And I don't know, it seems kind of interesting given the timing, because in a week or so, Trinan's going to be back. I don't know that he's going to be ready to close right off the bat anyhow, but I certainly think that it's possible, given his prior closing history, that he could be an option. Him and Phillips there. I hope to God that Kimbrel keeps closing at least most of the time, because I can't believe I'm down to this. In the main event, I had Aroldis Chapman, Bryce Iglesias, and Craig Kimbrel. And now I'm down to Craig Kimbrel, and I might not even have him anymore. And I'm like, what just happened? How is this possible? We specifically addressed this early so we wouldn't have this issue. And here we are, you know, specking on Wick, Roman Wick, and, you know, Clay Holmes again. I don't know, man. It's just so frustrating. But yeah, I don't know. Trinan could enter the picture, but just something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I mean, if he does, once he comes back, like, I can't imagine they're going to throw him straight into 9.
Yeah.
I also, like, with how bad Kimbrel was, you know, when they moved into a setup role last year in Chicago, I have a really hard time believing that will be where the Dodgers put him. That being said, the Dodgers are trying to win a championship, right?
Yeah.
Like, and it's
Yep.
at the end of the day, like they're going to do what it takes to win. But I mean, they stuck with Jansen even through a lot of his struggles, kind of late in that contract. And then the playoffs came around. They're like, hey, we're going to do what's best for the team. But in the regular season, they always just stuck with Jansen. They've got like a 16 or 17 game lead on the Padres. Like, I don't know why they would even worry about messing around with it. I'm not like I wouldn't bank on trying and becoming the guy. I think like outside of the deepest leagues, or a place where a viable middle reliever is worthy of picking up. Like I wouldn't grab him, honestly. Sir Anthony Dominguez hits the IL. Dave Robertson should be the closer, right?
I mean, they say that they're not just going to give it back to him or give it to him. I guess he never really had it there in Philly, but yeah, I think it's certain. I think he's certainly the favorite. I know he blew it the other day, but he had a 2-inning save before that. Yeah, Sir Anthony was just so lights out, man. That's a rough loss for anybody who had him.
He's not supposed to be out a super long time, I don't think. So
okay, well, I mean, you have until Sunday in those types of non-daily leagues, so you can wait it out and see what the news is by then to see if he's worth holding on to.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I read somewhere that they're hoping he'll be back after a minimum.
The minimum.
But that's still 2 of the 6.5 weeks we have left. That's almost a third of the season. So
true.
Let's see. Jake Junis, he got hit in the hand by a comebacker. This is interesting because I was looking for video of it on Twitter last night.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
And I could not find it. But you know what I did find? Video of him getting hit in the hand with a comebacker when he was on the Royals.
Oh, my God. Jesus.
So I don't know what it is about this guy, but clearly he's got like a magnet in his hand or something. Because
and it's in his non-pitching hand, right? So did it hit off the glove?
I wasn't watching the game, so
okay. Well, I mean, supposedly it's his right hand and he's lefty, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I guess it hit off of his glove. I don't know. I too went looking for video to see if I could see how bad it looked, but I didn't see anything.
No, he's already. He's already.
Oh, okay. I thought it was his offhand though. I didn't think it was his pitching hand.
Either way, negative on the X-rays. He should make his start. So. Would you start him against the Twins? It's not like he's been very good.
Well, he had a really good 2 start actually, and he was looking completely different. And I was finally confident in him again. I would have played him, but given that when you don't know if a guy's going to play or not, even if it's a good matchup, if you have any other option, you have to use it because it's better than taking a potential 0, especially like this late in the season where every little thing helps. And not just that, but like if there's any adverse effects, he might not be as good. The Twins are really good on top of that. And it's a Sunday start. And like if there's weather or anything, like at any time, Sunday starts could just, if there's anything that gets pushed back earlier in the week, there's a lot of ways that he could end up not getting that start. So I benched him for the week.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know that I would start him. Minnesota's much better against righties than lefties, so I think I'd probably. And then there's the risk that you just take an absolute 0, which you never want to do.
Yeah.
Cody Morris, he's been dominating in the minors since coming off the IL. Do we care? Why did you put this on the rundown? For those who don't know, Dave did the rundown today.
Yeah. Because Cody Morris is really, really, really good. I drafted him in a lot of DCs. I know a lot of other people did. I know Jake and James Anderson and I are kind of leading the charge for the Cody Morris fan club, but it's one of those things where a lot of guys are going to get called up in September, and I think he's going to be one, but I think he's probably going to return as a reliever. They do have a doubleheader. I think September 17th. I think we could see Morris start that. He's the best, most ready prospect in the minors for the Guardians, and I think probably for anybody who's healthy anyways. Like Grayson Rodriguez is obviously, he's ready, and Daniel Espino in our system is better, but he's not ready yet. So yeah, I don't know. He could have some relevance in September if he gets some spot starts.
Now remember, we're back to the days in which each team only gets 2 September call-ups. So it's not like the old days where anybody in the 40-man can come up.
Oh, good point.
So you're not going to see a huge influx. You'll see some guys, and on competing teams like the Guardians, they may bring up their best guy, the guy they think they're going to help them win now. But because September doesn't come cost against your service time. So
yeah.
That being said, Morris, I mean, he could be an interesting challenge. I usually like to wait to kind of see, who the guys that are actually coming up. I mean, I guess if you got a deep enough bench, you can throw a buck on him and hope that he is the guy. But I think for the most part, I usually like to just wait and kind of see what happens. Unless there's a guy that I really feel confident about who's going to be up, it can be a difference maker.
I mean, I'm really confident in his abilities. I'm not confident that there's going to be a spot for him because the Guardians have 5 solid pitchers. So
he's not going to be a starter unless they decide to move to 6-man. But I just at this point, in the standings, they got a 2-game lead on the Twins, 3-game lead on the White Sox. They're not locked in enough to be like, let's give this Cody Morris dude a try. If he comes up, he's probably.
I don't think that's it at all. I just think you already have 5 solid starters, so it would be kind of awkward replacing like Quantrill or Plesac. Even though, for what it's worth, I do think the Morris is better than both of them right now.
All right,
but we'll see.
Michael Kopech left today with a hamstring injury. He reportedly was feeling it and was not feeling right before his start, like during warmups. And Tony La Russa said, get out there and pitch.
Wow. Really?
And just decided that he needed to pitch today. He ends up getting destroyed, leaves injured. Probably is going to hit the IL. Can we just please get Tony La Russa out of town? Like this is unreal.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like the old, you're a manly man, get out there and play, that kind of garbage nonsense. Like back in my day, we used to throw 150 innings a start and all that crap. It's like, okay.
Back in his day, kids died of polio.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's like, let's not be using that as our model to compare to. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I'm with you. He's so out of touch. I don't have any idea how he even got this job, but to see how much the White Sox are underachieving, a lot of that has to be on him.
They should be running away with this division.
I am stunned right now that the Guardians are beating not only the Twins but also the White Sox. I mean, they haven't made $40 payroll.
$40 the Guardians,
budget. Yeah. Like, no midseason, no additions at the All-Star break. Nothing. They didn't do anything. It's unreal. I mean, I'm loving it. But it's really a travesty for the White Sox and the Twins that they're not running away with this, especially the White Sox with all the money that they spent. And they look really bad for not keeping Rodon too. Like, how bad does that look? We all thought if they were letting him go for whatever that, option that they had for him, and they chose to let him go to the Giants, like, that was dumb.
Yeah, I'm sure he would. I'm sure he would have taken it too.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you just take $20 million up front? I mean, it ended up working out for him. He's going to opt out after this year and get a hell of a lot more next year, as long as nothing happens, knock on wood, in the next few weeks. I'd love to see him stay, but he's not going to be a Giant next year if he's healthy. So, Luis Garcia, this is a middle infielder for the Washington Nationals. He's on a rehab assignment. He could be returning later this week. I like Luis Garcia. I've always liked him. I think people kind of they do what they do with prospects every time. A prospect comes up, doesn't succeed right away, and they bury the dude. I think he's going to be like a good player for much of his career. He's still super young, and the Nationals are finally giving him a chance to play. So he's going to be a target for me next year.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't know what people would be expecting from him as a rookie. I mean, he was hitting actually really well when he went to the IL. He was hitting, I mean, he's hitting for the year 290, and that's despite struggling for a while at first. So, this guy has pretty elite hit tool. It just comes down to whether he's going to provide enough power, but the guy has a 113.4 max EV. He just needs to hit it more consistently. His hard hit percentage is only 37.5%. But I mean, the power's there. He has some power. He's not just a empty average kind of guy. So, and there's a little bit of speed in there as well. But I just think if you're looking for a guy down the stretch to add some average and probably play every day in a lineup that has no reason not to play him, I think he could help a lot of teams.
Well, and the really nice thing is when he comes back, I don't think he's not going to be shortstop. He'll move over to second base, is would be my assumption. Which
you
means,
what do you think they're going to do with Caesar?
Oh, I think Caesar becomes a super util guy.
I don't know. Caesar's been playing real well and running a lot lately too. I don't know what they're going to do because
I hope that. I mean, they're gonna keep playing Abrams at short.
Yeah.
And especially because as much as I like Garcia, he's atrocious defensively.
You could probably move him to move someone to third base because Ildemaro Vargas is horrendous.
Yeah, maybe they try. Either way, wherever he ends up playing, he should have enough games to get positional eligibility for next year, and that'll make him a little bit more valuable. So I like Luis Garcia, and like I said, he's going to be a target of mine late next year because I don't think 4 home runs, 290 average, 289, 1 stolen base. Nobody's going to be like pushing him up the board, and I think he's going to be he's not a league winner by any stretch of the imagination, but a cheap MI or if he gets third base eligibility CI, he'll be on a bunch of, especially my DC teams, for sure.
Yep.
Bryce Harper is beginning a rehab assignment tomorrow. Could be back next week. Are you excited?
I mean, I would be if I had held him in Glarf, but I dropped him, so I'm no longer excited. It's gonna be interesting because they had Derek Hall, who's getting a lot of util time or DH time, and then Schwarber returned from injury. They stopped playing Hall, so now Schwarber's playing DH, and then when Harper comes back, he's going to need to play DH. And this is a team that already has Nick Castellanos on it playing the field, so it's going to be fun times in their field. Once Harper returns, it'll be interesting to see how they move guys around. I think this might be the end of Derek Hall's relevance, by the way, because I'm pretty sure they're going to have nowhere else to play him.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's going to get set down. Now, I mean, here's the thing. Harper is, it's a thumb injury. So, I mean, he could play the outfield. We'll have to see what he does in.
I didn't think he was playing the outfield before the thumb injury.
Well, that's right, because he also had like a knee issue too, right? Or something like that.
I forget what it was, but he was limited to DH since, holy God, he hasn't played the field since April 16th. So
okay. Well, there you go. So bye Derek Hall. This is the worst constructed team I've ever seen.
it's like someone's just hey, let's just forget about defense and just throw everyone out there and see what happens. It's kind of like softball or something. It's like
and here's a fun fact. The Giants have the worst defense in the major leagues this year. How is it worse than Philadelphia's? This is how bad the Giants defense is.
That's horrendous. What metric are you using to measure that?
I'm pretty sure it's every metric. It's and then my fucking eye test. It's been atrocious. It's outfield defense, really. It's the infield's been fine. The infield defense is, still got Longoria in Crawford, but the outfield defense it has been the worst in the league easily. It just, but this is what happens when you try all this platooning. Like I love the platooning, like from an offensive standpoint, it's great. But then when you have to throw guys like Lamont Wade Jr. and Darren Ruff and out into the outfield, that becomes a huge fucking problem.
Yeah. Good luck. I don't know.
Moving right along away from me bringing up the Giants for no reason. Kyle Hendricks is done for the season. He's just never going to be good again, right? I mean, it's over, right?
You can never say never, but it's not looking good. I mean, you can move on from him in all leagues, dynasty, otherwise, whatever.
You should have moved on from him a while ago.
You should. That's true.
Yeah. Clayton Kershaw, he threw a 3-inning sim game, is expected to return without a rehab assignment, which is good for fantasy owners, but it feels like he could be a guy who tandems up with someone to kind of keep his workload, at least in his first few starts back, kind of low, right? They just want to make sure he's got, a fresh arm coming into the postseason.
Yeah, I assume that's where their focus is, and he's obviously a guy who's very brittle, so he could get re-injured at any point, and I think they're going to do whatever they can to try to prevent that from happening.
Yeah. Bailey Ober, Kenta Maeda, and Grayson Rodriguez are all facing hitters this week. I completely forgot about Kenta Maeda. And I don't care about him for this year.
No, not for this year. No, he's going to be completely irrelevant for this year.
But for next year, I want to see how I want to see him throwing innings and getting through the year healthy. If he goes through the year healthy, then he will be a guy that I'm interested in coming into next season.
That's fair. I have no idea what to expect from him. Is he coming back from? Is he Tommy John or
Tommy John? Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm probably. I don't know. I'm gonna have to look at the timeline there to know whether I'm probably gonna avoid him next year, but we'll see.
It's been a full year.
Yeah, but 18 months is what you want.
Well, you wait for 18 months from now is like February.
What? 18 months? Oh, you mean from now when the surgery was?
Yeah. So it's another February's in 6 months.
Yeah.
So like he'll have had 18 months by the time, spring training comes around.
Yeah, but he's gonna have to rebuild everything, and he is older. Yeah. I don't know. He won't be a guy I'll be targeting. I'll say that. We'll see.
But he's also not a guy that relies on like power pitching. Like
true.
So I'm not as worried about that. And I think he'll be extremely cheap because he really struggled right before the injury.
Yeah.
So I think he's gonna be if he goes at the same rate as like the Severinos and Syndergaards and stuff like that went this year, then I won't be in. But I assume he's going to go outside like the top 240.
Yeah, so for sure.
At that point, I'll take.
He'll be late.
At that point, I'll take a dart throw. Like, why not? Okay. Like, if he's my first drop, if after 2 or 3 starts he's bad, then fine. Like, I don't really care about that. Let's see. And then Grayson Rodriguez. The Orioles are hanging around. Like they could definitely. They're only 3 games back of the Rays right now. 2.5 back from the Blue Jays. They're over 500. He could be an interesting guy for the stretch.
I don't know what they're going to do with him, and they're talking about how they don't know if they said that they're going to give him starts, but it might just be in the minors. Obviously. It's a weird situation because the Orioles weren't expecting to be in the playoff race, but they kind of are. Mm-hmm. I don't think they're, exactly a favorite to make the playoffs, but they have a shot. And it would seem like if you don't do everything you can to try to make that a reality, then you're doing a disservice to your fans and city and everything. But Sean Childs in my main event has drafted and held Grayson Rodriguez all season.
What place is he in?
He's in second place somehow. His team looks horrific. I have no idea how he's ahead of us. Sean, I love you, but I have no idea what the fuck you're doing here. But he still has Grayson Rodriguez on his roster, I think. Unless he just dropped him last week. It was he dropped someone that he had been holding all season. I don't know. Really strange, though. But yeah, he is a guy who's definitely ready. Unlike DL Hall, who I had zero interest in, Grayson Rodriguez is a premium talent. I mean, this guy... I'm going to be all about him next year for sure.
Yeah, right now Baltimore is 2.5 games out of last wild card, and they're the last team on the outside looking in. Like they can easily make the playoffs here. I like Rodriguez a lot. I agree with you. I have no idea what they're going to do in terms of bringing him up. I don't know how if they enter September, like after the first week of September, and they are like in this position right now. Like, I don't know how you don't bring him up. Like,
you have to.
I think you have to, right? Like, they've got a bunch of mediocre names in that rotation. You get a potential frontline guy in Grayson Rodriguez. Like, that could be a difference maker. Do we care about Bailey Oberth?
Probably not. Considering how long of a layoff it's been and coming back and. He's not a premium talent, or like he's a guy that I'd be interested in when he's fully healthy and everything. But for how long he's been out, it's gonna take a long time to ramp back up and to get. It's just probably not worth it.
Probably not. But in 15-team leagues right now, man, you know as well as me, the waiver wire is barren, like barren for starters. Like it is like fishing with like a bunch of crap out there. Just it's been awful. Edward Alzolay, he's beginning a rehab assignment. Do we care?
Probably not. He'll probably. I mean, he's not a guy who can go a lot of innings anyhow. So he'll probably be like a piggyback kind of guy or something like that.
Yeah. Otani's got a stomach bug, but he's supposed to make his next start. So hopefully we don't have.
I saw him pinch. He pinch hit tonight, so I think he's probably back in the lineup tomorrow or the day after even.
Looks like Laureano is going to return once first eligible with his oblique injury. This pisses me off because he's oblique injuries are usually 4 to 6 weeks. I dropped him a main event. I mean, it's not like he's been great or anything, but still, like,
but he gives you some homers and some steals. The average has been bad, but yeah, he's still quite useful. There was a report out there that they thought it would be a minimum stint when it happened because they said it was not a severe oblique injury. So we held him where we had him, but we'll see how he does.
I don't have the room to be to mess around with anything at this point. Alec Baum, he leaves the undisclosed injury. Just kind of keep an eye on that.
Yeah, they didn't say what it was. It just happened.
Domingo Armand left with he left to start with a calf injury. This is a huge bummer because he was actually pitching really well.
I know. It sucks. I don't think it's probably not going to affect his next start. Like he just got hit with a comeback or it's probably just bruised or whatever, but it sucks that he had to leave the start early.
Yeah. Byron Buxton left with a hip injury. Would you like to say anything about it?
I am shocked at this development. I mean, God, it's been so frustrating owning him in Yahoo this league because the whole point of drafting him was, hey, he'll be really good when he's healthy, and then when he's not, he'll be on the IL, and I can add other guys. Well, he keeps not going on the IL. He'll miss like a week and a half, but they won't put him on the IL, so then I can't pick anybody else up, and it's been annoying as shit. And he's hitting like 200, even though the power's been good. He even stole a base today for like the first time in I don't even know how long, but he's beyond frustrating to own. I hate him.
No one is going to do it. No one will. Because the people who are taking victory laps on him in April or May or whenever they were taking their victory laps, they aren't the type of people that are going to take massive L's. He's been bad.
Oh, yeah.
And he was a bad investment. I'm not I'm talking about every format. Fuck it, every format. He has been bad. Like, I know he's got 28 home runs in just 300 plate appearances. He's hitting 224. His runs and RBIs aren't great. He's only stolen now 6 bases. Like, people who drafted him in the second and third round of 15-team leagues, you were wrong. Please take that L. Like, please take that L.
You have to. I mean, and some people were like, oh, he's so good. He should have been a first or second rounder. All those early victory laps in April, I mean, just look absurd right now.
If you're doing it for fun just because it's funny, I get that. I do it. Absolutely. But if you seriously try to take a victory lap on anybody for any reason, before even before the halfway point of the season, and even then, that's risky to do. You're just asking for trouble, especially on a guy like Buxton. I mean, I never understood it.
The Buxton and the Bellinger, those victory laps, I even said at the time, I'm like, this is going to look real bad for you in a month or two. And they've looked pretty bad. I mean, he had a really good April and a really good June, and every other month has been pretty much a combination of him being injured and or not performing very well.
He has struck out 30% of the time this year. He's hitting 224. Yes, the upside is huge on him, but he doesn't run the way he used to. People thinking they were.
At what point are we going to say that upside no longer exists? He's had 1 year where he hit over 400 plate appearances. I mean, 1 year where he had 500. He didn't even get to 600. So, when are we just going to say, okay, that upside isn't really something that can actually be realized? It's like a myth. I don't know. It's just he's not worth it.
People are going to do the same thing next year.
I know.
They will. All right, let's move on, get away from the news, get away from the negative stuff, and talk about how we're going to win these leagues and cash in these leagues. Rest away. There's 6.5 weeks left. There's still plenty of time to make big moves in the standings, as we've already kind of talked about, at the beginning. What are some of the things that you want heading into these last few weeks?
So I've always said my biggest weakness as a fantasy player by far is my fab management. I just have such a problem reserving anything. I spend too much. I said it's not the early season expenditures. I think it's like that middle section. It's like from May to July. I think I spend too much in that area. You always convince yourself like, okay, this is going to be the last big guy to come up, or this is going to be the last, blah, blah. And it never is, like a week or two later, there's someone else that you can pick up that you liked way more than the guy that you spent a ton on earlier. But it's so hard at the time. You have to have that restraint. And I just don't have that, unfortunately. Like even now, I'm pretty much trying to manage like $60 or fewer in all my leagues left. But the thing is, I've seen people make big moves down the stretch because they have fab left. There's going to be a number of injuries. There's going to be a lot of guys who get shut down. There's going to be a lot of guys who had regular playing time until September comes, and then they're going to stop having regular playing time. And the way that you can take advantage of that is to have even $1 to throw on guys and to keep replenishing your lineups, keep making sure you have guys that are playing every day that are producing, because right now, production now is worth so much more than potential production a couple weeks from now. You can't be thinking that way anymore. You have to play for now. You have to get the guys who are hitting now, who are pitching well right now. You can't keep holding guys on your bench. You can't keep stashing guys. They need to give you production right now, or you need to move on and replace them with someone who can.
Yeah, I could not say it better myself. And I think, like I said, we talked about this last week. This has been a really disappointing year for me. With my own leagues, I think one of my biggest issues is fab management. It's spending too much in big chunks too often early on, and then leaving myself hamstrung. One of the things that happened, like in the main event that I'm still trying to compete in, is my team went into a clear tailspin. Right, I was in first place at one point, and all of a sudden I'm down to 15th. And it was that my team went in tailspin, but I didn't have the fab in my bank to address it the way I would have liked to address it, because I wasted it on other guys earlier on in the season. And so I definitely feel like I'm going to take a little bit different approach. I like how aggressive I was in terms of my drops. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to budget things out for like a week by week basis, right? Like I can spend this much in April, this much in May, this much in June. So that way, when July and August comes around, I'm not penny pinching in the way that I did this year, because I think that really hurt me.
Yeah, I agree. That's I know I'm just this fucking cameras.
For those of you listening later on, Dave has got a split screen thing going on his camera where his face is on one side, on the left side, and his right hand is on the other. Is it your right or your left hand? I don't even know.
I'm right-handed.
Okay,
I'm flicking you off with my right hand. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's pretty funny. You should go check the YouTube out later on. Looking at standings and figuring out where you can move up and down. This is kind of, I think, what people tend to do is they go, well, I'm putting my best lineup out there, or I'm putting my most balanced lineup out there. And this is not the time to do that. This time to, I cannot stress enough spreadsheeting out your standings. And really figuring out, okay, I can gain this many points in wins, this many points in saves. I can gain or lose this many points in ERA, and really figuring out like where you can make moves and where you can't. I'm in a league where like I'm in the middle of the pack and I'm killing everybody in stolen bases right now. So like, why would I put Jorge Mateo in my lineup? I'm not going to. He's out of my lineup. Put in a guy who can hit me some bombs, because that's what I need. So like really adjusting your lineups based on where you can make up the most ground without losing points.
Yeah, Exactly. And I kind of look at it as I look at a couple things. I look at where I can easily gain points, where I can potentially gain points, where I can easily lose points, and where I can potentially lose points. And I break it down in those 4 categories for every single, for runs, for RBI, for homers, for ERA, whip, every category. And that helps me set my lineup every week. I'm always looking at that with that in mind. And like you said, you're not just playing your best players. Like if you don't need saves, what are you still throwing Edwin Diaz or Kenley Jansen out there for? Like, I get you want the ERA and they're going to get you some Ks and everything, but if you have a lot of room to make up of in like wins or strikeouts, you need to be putting in every single starter you can, and you need to be looking at wins. Don't worry about playing just the best starters. Like a mediocre start, like Jake Odorizzi on Atlanta facing Pittsburgh, it might be a better play than like Luis Garcia or or even like a good player on a bad team like an Edward Cabrera, for example. Like as good as he's been on the Marlins, what are the chances he's going to get a win? So you really need to be thinking about that and not just throwing out your quote unquote best players. Like maybe you should be playing Cesar Hernandez because he's running a lot right now and playing every day. Then I don't know, someone who's like a power hitter. If you need speed, you need speed. You need to be looking at every little thing that you possibly can.
Yeah, and I think one of the things too, like I went over this with Danielle this weekend because she's doing well in teaching FBI, and
good.
And she's been really frustrated because like I'm not making up any ground. Like she's not going to win the league most likely, but she could legitimately finish in the top 3 or 4 of her league, and which is going to be higher than I'm going to finish. So good for her, and embarrassing for me. But I was kind of showing her, I was like, listen, you've got maybe one person you can catch in saves, and no one's really going to catch you. And it's probably a stretch, even though she has 3 closers, like it's probably going to be a stretch that she even catches that person in front of her. So I said, like, maybe you keep Presley in, but you go 8 starters with the rest. Like, give yourself a little bit of a cushion and help your ratios a little bit with Presley. But you should be rolling out starters because where you can gain 5 or 6 points in wins. And so that's what she did this week. She fucking unloaded the clip of her fab and got both Eduardo Rodriguez and Dustin May.
Yeah.
And she's
I don't know that Eduardo Rodriguez is going to help her too much in wins on the Tigers, but May is a big pickup.
It's worth a shot. I mean, it's better than starting David Robertson and Jorge Lopez, who are not going to get her wins, and their saves aren't going to matter for her as much. So,
and I'm glad you brought up the point of it's okay to sacrifice a point or two. Like if I'm going to lose, like say someone is right on my tail, or even right above me or right below me in saves, it's fine to sacrifice a point or even 2 points if you can move up more than that in Ks and wins by taking those guys out and putting in more starters. Yeah. So the worst thing you can do is make these alterations too late and not have enough time to make the move that you need to make. The other thing is I double count if they're like, say you're in a dogfight with 1 or 2 teams in your league. I double count those categories where I can pass my biggest opponents. You know what I mean? So, because you're not just gaining a point, you're taking a point away from them, and you can win both ways.
Absolutely, and you should know what your opponents need, especially if you're going to do something like, now's the time. Like, let's say you are not competitive. I saw Rob DiPietro do this in the league last year, right? He is not competitive. I think it was in saves. He was not going to be competitive. He dropped all his closers. Like he just went, I'm going full, actually, I think it was the opposite. I think he was not competitive in like strikeout and wins. And he was just like, I'm just going to go full relievers. And so he dropped some really good starters onto the wire in one of his main events. And he was all, and he's like, he committed. And you know what? It definitely helped. I think he cashed third, but, like that's what you have to do sometimes. Now, but this is why it's important to study your standings, studying the people you're competing with. Really sit down, take an afternoon, take an evening, and really break it down for each one of your leagues. and go like, this is where I can make the moves and this is where I can't afford. And please, every year people make moves and they're like, well, the ratios don't move. The ratios move at this time of year. Todd Zola has done some really, really great work over at Masters Ball and RotoWire on how much the ratios can still move at this point here. And it's the only place where you can literally lose ground, right? You can get worse ratios and other people can catch you without even improving. So be careful about your ratios.
For sure. And I remember a couple of years ago in the final week, I played some garbage starters just trying to gain in wins and Ks. And I ended up losing a couple points in ratios because it was like, you know, it was guys that I shouldn't have been having any faith in. It was like September call-up kind of guys. And, you know, those are such crapshoots. I've learned to stay away from those kind of things. Another thing with what you're saying.
In 2020 in my main event, I lost on the last at bat of the season. I went from third to fourth. Dusty Wagner went ahead of me because it wanted Eugenio Suarez. So at one at bat raised his batting average. Suarez last at bat, like no other games were playing. Last at bat of the season, Suarez got a hit, and I lost.
Yeah.
So like the ratios still move people.
I ended up getting third in the super based on I was tied for third and I ended up nudging him out because I got a save from one of my starting pitchers in
I remember this
in like the last or the second last game to end last year. It was one of the craziest finishes I've ever had. I mean, that team was left for dead around the All-Star break and somehow I got it all the way up to third and I was so happy about that. It was unreal. But I thought I had tied and I was so dejected. Going back to what you were saying about Rob, though, before, and this is something else that I've done in leagues too, you want to take note of not just your opponent's like rosters, but also how active they are and see who's involved in Fab every week. So consider if you drop a player, like let's say you have let's say you're winning power by so incredibly much. You're winning runs, RBI, homers, everything. I know it sounds like something that doesn't make sense at all, but maybe you could drop a guy like Aaron Judge in order to help your competition move above a more direct competition. Like let's say the guy in second behind you is really like, if you can get the right players, depending on how much fab they have left, you want to look and see like, who would potentially pick him up if I were to drop this guy, or steals, drop a guy like Bear T because you're up by 20 steals or whatever. You can drop a guy who can make a big impact from one of your other teams to move ahead of a guy who's on your heels, so, but it's risky because you don't know how it's
very risky.
You don't know how it's going to play out in free agency, but I've seen it work a number of times. And I've seen people.
It can also backfire huge if your competitor is the guy who gets them.
You really have to have a good feel for your league in order to do something like that. But when you're talking about a super active league, like a main event, like a high stakes league or something where everybody is making bids every week, if a big player gets dropped, that's going to move the standings significantly for them. They're going to put down the money that they need to get them. You can pretty much bet on that. It's risky, but it's things like you have to think outside the box sometimes.
Absolutely. Let's see. Let's talk a little bit about lineups of teams that are out of playoff contention. Are there certain things you're kind of looking for to kind of attack with those kind of teams?
Yeah, so down the stretch, what you'll notice is the teams that are playoff contenders, you're going to see them roll out pretty much the same lineups day in and day out. They're playing to win. They're putting their best guys out there. Now, if it's like the Rays, they're probably going to keep doing what they do and, sitting guys every other day and all that shit. But most teams are going to be playing the same guys until they're out of contention. But what you will see is I look at the Marlins lineup and you see before he went on the IL, Garrett Cooper was sitting a lot. Jesus Aguilar is sitting. So like they're going to give their playing time to their young players. They want to see what they have with Lewin Diaz. There's a lot of teams out there. And like you were saying before with the Nationals, maybe when Luis Garcia returns, maybe we see Cesar Hernandez not play as much, or maybe they cut him, or who knows. But don't
I
take
can
for
see them
granted.
totally like cutting Nelson Cruz, like for sure.
Or
Like, I mean,
yeah, they could do that too. Yeah, and I'm not sure what the contract situations are of these guys, but obviously Cruz isn't a fit for this team moving forward. So just be aware that everything that happened before late August, early and into September doesn't mean that that's how it's going to be moving forward. You're going to see a lot of these teams that are out of it. You're going to see them bring up guys in. Now you said only a couple of guys, but they're going to be bringing guys up. Lineups will be changing a lot more, like a ton. I always say your last couple weeks of the season, your team should look more like the waiver wire to begin the season than the team you drafted. You should be turning over guys constantly because a lot of these guys are going to become irrelevant or they're going to be playing every other day. And people make a lot of moves, especially in those counting stats because of that fact, because they're taking advantage and they're picking those guys up who are now everyday players. You're going to see a lot of guys in September who you were like, oh, that guy's garbage. They're going to be the league winners. Those are the guys that you need to make sure you get and make sure you don't just keep playing the same players just because you've been playing them all year. Especially when you're talking about teams that are out of the running, you're going to see a lot of these guys getting set.
Yeah, I mean, I could not agree with you more. I mean, you're going to see teams that, like the Pirates, like the A's, like, the Rockies, they're going to stop playing some of these older guys. I mean, you've already seen like the A's move on from Elvis Andrus.
Yep.
You're going to see other players from teams that aren't competing, just like they're going to DFA or just straight up cut guys that you're like, whoa, he was kind of a full-time player most of the year. Well, he doesn't fit into the future, and they're looking at the future, right? And they want to see, are these other guys part of the future? And being on top of those guys, especially guys who can move a category. So, like, if a guy can move stolen bases, he's got a lot of power, or he's a really, really good contact hitter. Like, these guys who can help you move in a category are going to be really, really valuable. And so staying on top of those transactions and kind of lineups right now, like, lineup trackers are your best friend. And then on the pitching side, like, you're going to see some, I mean, we've already seen it this year, right? There are certain teams that are really, really bad that you want to stream against. It's going to get even worse or better depending on the way you're looking at it.
Yeah. A big thing in September is just targeting those non-contending teams, those teams that very clearly have nothing to play for. They're going to be giving their young guys a lot of playing time. Not all of them will be horrendous, but a lot of them will be really, really bad, like worse than you've seen any teams at any point in the season. And you want to just target pitchers facing those teams. It's going to be super important to just be micromanaging the hell out of your team down the stretch. Be looking at splits, be looking at playing time, be looking at, I would write down for all of your pitchers, every single start they have left. If they're facing a bunch of contending good offenses, maybe it's time to move on from them. I mean, if we're talking about like non-elite starters, find guys who have favorable schedules, even if they haven't been great so far. Find someone who could be usable down the stretch. I know Zach was tweeting earlier today about adding David Peterson in a lot of leagues before. And I had been trying to add David Peterson for several weeks because I knew that a rotation with DeGrom, Scherzer, and Carrasco and Taijuan Walker, 0% chance that was staying healthy. So now that Carrasco's gone, Peterson's coming in, and he has a phenomenal schedule down the stretch. Look for opportunities like that, guys, and look for potential guys who have been out for a while, or maybe who got sent down to the minors but could come back up for other teams who have nothing to play for come September. See if you can pick those guys up for $1 a week early. Because those guys are probably going to be getting a lot of playing time in September.
Also, look at, one of the things you can do right now is kind of graph out what remaining pitching schedules look like, right? Things are going to change for, here and there. But like there's certain guys where you go like Alex Wood is droppable right now. His remaining schedule is atrocious. Like at least his next 3 or 4 starts. And like, do you want to hold both? Do you want to hold them on your roster while you wait for them to maybe get a series, against the Diamondbacks? Like, I don't know that you do. Like, it's not worth just having a dead roster spot for a guy like Alex Cobb or Alex Wood. So, I mean, making these kind of decisions now, as opposed to trying to figure out what to do at the end, I think is or being forced to be in a situation where you've got to start Alex Wood at the Dodgers because your, other pitcher that was in your lineup has gone down and there isn't anything left on the waiver wires. Like right now is a really, really good time to like graph all these things out and kind of figure out, okay, what is the long-term plan here? Also be very careful as we start getting into September with teams that have pretty much locked up their division, right? And we're looking at 3 teams for the most part right now, right? We're looking at the Dodgers, the Astros, and probably the Yankees. Even though the Yankees have been shaky as of late, they still have an 8-game lead on the rest of the division. I don't think they're necessarily giving that back. You're going to start seeing starters get skipped, starters not go as deep into games. Just to kind of, if you think Verlander's pitching every 5th day, 7 innings, I don't know that he is, and so just be, you're not dropping those guys necessarily, but it's something to be mindful of, especially if you have starts limits, especially if you are like really competitive in certain categories.
Yeah. And along the same lines, basically the teams that are in a dogfight for the playoffs right now, those players on those teams are like gold right now. Like those are the players you can count on. Their starters are going to be pushed. Their hitters are going to be motivated. These are, they're not going to be sitting. They're going to be playing all the way through because you're going to, like you said, most of this is a lot in the last week, maybe week and a half, that we start seeing a lot of guys get skipped and sat. But if they have a big enough lead, they'll start doing it. Even
the Dodgers, with the health of their rotation, it would not be surprising if you start seeing tandem guys. You start seeing Kershaw, like tandem up with another pitcher. Dustin May, as much as impressive as he was in that first start back, he is coming off of Tommy John. They want him available for the postseason. Right. Andrew Heaney's been injured. How many innings can they really expect Gonsolin to do at this kind of level? Tyler Anderson has had a lot of help. Like that whole rotation has been injury prone outside of Urias. Like that's about it, right?
Yeah.
And even him, he's had injury issues. So like,
true.
Like, I would not be surprised if you see a phantom IL stint for 1 or 2 of these guys, or then just start skipping guys. Like if Pepio stays, if they run a 7-man rotation, it's not going to surprise me.
They could. And you're just looking at competition. The AL Central, Cleveland, Minnesota, Chicago. That's going to be probably a dogfight right down to the end. Yep. NL East, the Mets and the Braves are really close to each other. And then you look at, the wild card standings, and you got the Rays, the Jays, the Mariners. They're all going to be in it. And then the National League, you're going to have the Phillies, the Padres, the Brewers. They're all going to be in it. Those teams are the teams that you want to focus on. You want as many hitters and pitchers from those teams as possible. I mean, obviously, assuming that they're good players, but if all else being equal, but even maybe a little bit less than equal, I would still gravitate towards players on those teams when constructing your rosters over the last month.
Absolutely. Hey, like we got to micromanage. So like, what kind of things are you doing to micromanage your lineups?
Yeah, every little thing matters. We've been talking about mapping all this stuff out in an Excel spreadsheet or however you do things. I like to give myself options when there's like a week, when there's multiple weeks coming up where teams, like some teams play 5 games, some teams play 7 or 8 games. Those are the times where I really want to make sure I have enough hitters where I don't have to drop the players that are on a 5-game week, but I also don't have to start them because it really sucks playing a guy with 2 games in the first half of the week when other guys have 4 or 5 games in that same stretch. And granted, they're not going to start all of those games, but they'll probably play, 4 out of 5 or maybe 3 out of 4 or something like that, where you're still getting a pretty big advantage there. So I like to try to give myself options and have enough hitters to take advantage of that. If guys go on the IL at this point in the season, other than rare circumstances where, okay, it's going to be a minimum stay, you're probably dropping them. If someone's coming back in mid-September, you got to just move on. Guys, especially pitchers, you can't be worried about like Luis Severino coming back on like September 12th or something like that. It's like, okay, even if he does and he doesn't have any setbacks, he still has to ramp up. You're not going to play him his first start back.
You're going to get 3 or 4 starts out of him max. Like it's
they might not even be that good. And it's just not Like you can't hold off waiting for guys. You need production now over production later. It doesn't matter if it's a much better player coming back later. You need the production now.
Yeah, 15 innings on a guy, or 18 innings on a guy, like that's not going to move the needle in most cases. So, waiting on these guys is just like I see people flocking to the waiver wire to pick up Jack Flaherty right now.
Oh my God, no!
It's a mistake. Like just. Do I want him to be good again? Absolutely, but like I dropped him a while ago. I do not regret that drop at all.
No.
All right. I think that pretty much covers everything, right? Let's do an Earth update.
Okay. Well, Glarf is still on top, and as I mentioned earlier, we got 4 points to separate the top 6 teams, all vying for first. I'm down to $5 in Fab. Also reiterating an earlier point. So that's gonna be
I hope you're praying for health.
I am actually. I am praying to my God for health. The fantasy gods. So Barf still sucks, but they actually had a very slight rebound last week. Which
I'm gaining points in the standings. It's all on my back right now.
So for those who are watching this on the video, basically Barf like started low, went like straight up, and
no one can see you right now.
You know what? And then it's just been on a God, and it's like backwards too. It's like, oh God, what is going on here?
For those of you just listening in podcast form, Dave is trying to like draw things out with his hand, but his video is blurry, mirrored, and cut in half. Like no one can see what he's doing.
Jesus Christ! Fuck.
This is great.
I'm not even a point.
$10,000 in entry fees, and you can't buy a $20 camera.
I know. It's
when's your birthday?
$20. My birthday was a couple months ago. It was in June.
Okay, I'm for Christmas. I'm gonna get you. Though I did find out I'm 50% Jewish, so maybe for Hanukkah, I'll send you a. I don't know which one's first. I think Hanukkah is, but I'll send you a.
I mean, I've been waiting for my Friends with Fantasy Benefits royalty checks to start rolling in, and like take that 18 cents and put it towards a new video camera.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. I have to wait until it accumulates enough to cover the cost of
like 70, 80 years. I'll be good to cover the cost of one of these. It'd be good. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll write it off in taxes and send it to you. It's ridiculous.
Okay, but basically, Barf had been on, like, they hadn't had an up week. Every week had been worse than the previous week until this last week. So they actually had a week that was better than the prior week by a little bit. So I guess, small victories. Nerf is still in second. They're like 180 points behind Glarf. And then Slarf and Tarf are still battling it out for third. Ray Butler's still down to third place, which is still kind of crazy to say because he was literally in first all year. Although last year, do you remember Corbin was in first for like half the year before I took over? So,
yeah,
Jeff Erickson's still in first and Ryan Venancio's still in second. So those three pretty consistently have been in the top three for several weeks now. And I think it's going to be a horse race down the stretch. It's going to be interesting to see how it goes.
Should be a lot of fun. I'm excited to see how it finishes out.
Yeah.
All right. Remind everybody where you reached and if you're working on anything. I don't know if you are.
At Run DMcD on Twitter, and I'm working on my teams not losing in the final month. So that's where all my energy goes these days.
There you go. You can find me on Twitter at just a Mason FWFB. Email me or the show, friendsoffantasybenefits@gmail.com. You can read most of my stuff these days is over on Fangraphs. I write pretty much daily over there. You can also hear me on the Sleeper and the Bus podcast, TGFBI podcast. I got a lot of fun stuff I'm planning for the off season and for 2023. I'm just about to complete my first draft for 2023, my 3-sport league. I posted a picture of my 3 teams, baseball, football, and basketball, over on Twitter. So if you're interested in that at all, I got a pretty dominant baseball team, which probably means my basketball and football teams suck. But who cares? Other than that, we're gonna have a lot of stuff. Dave and I are gonna keep going strong in the off season, so may not be every week, but we will be pretty darn close to that, and kind of delivering a lot of content for you guys. So keep following us on Twitter. Keep following us here on the podcast. For Dave and myself, thank you for listening. Have fantastic baseball.